Hello students, welcome to this series on international marketing. Today we are going to study the concept of domestic marketing versus international marketing. Now marketing is important because we sell goods on the basis of trust and faith. In words of Athar, I chose Sony Classics not just because of their practical experience, not just because of their wisdom in marketing, but because of their integrity. So marketing is totally a concept which is built on faith, values, and the kind of the quality we give according to the products and services into the market. Now when we talk about the domestic markets, we have the small scale industries where it is difficult to take the goods into the market because the funds are less. The competition is genuinely local, but they have to genuinely race against the global competition also because the standardized products enter the local markets also. We have a kind of reduced power of consumers because the consumers in the local segments or in the local markets have less money. So it is very difficult to reach to these consumers through the kind of the awareness building programs. But still we have some kind of marketing impacts where we genuinely convince the customers to buy the products of the small scale industries also. Now you have to acquire a leadership ability, which requires a kind of a curiosity, risk taking ability, because you cannot position your goods only to few consumers and run after those customers. We genuinely have to understand that businesses have to focus on the expressions related to the expansion and ever-changing markets. We have the concept related to market-oriented businesses where we have to scan the market more broadly. We have to work closely with the lead users, and genuinely we have to combine the traditional research with the modern impacts of building the kind of the database. The pressure is you have to build a kind of a customer satisfaction. Now we basically have a kind of a casual link in the profit chain. How do we get profits? This is the customer loyalty drives profitability in the market, and this leads to the growth. This gives you the customer satisfaction. These satisfaction drives build the customer loyalty. We have the value drives, and these drives relate again to the kind of the customer satisfaction, and this gives the kind of the employee productivity drives which generate value into the market. The profit chain is also associated with the employee loyalty, that is generating profitability in the industry. The employee satisfaction drives loyalty, the internal quality drives the employee satisfaction, and the top management leadership giving you the underlying chain of the success. See this model where we have the three functional imperatives. Here we have the customers who have been focused by the marketing imperatives, the human resource imperatives, and the operations imperative. Now the marketing imperative relates to the kind of customers where we have to build relationships. It offers solutions to their needs and the problems. We have to define a kind of a quality package with the competitive advantage into the market. The operations imperative relate to create and deliver specified products and services related to the target customers. We have to adhere to consistent quality standards and achieve high productivity through adaptable cost, that is the optimum cost into the market. The human resource imperative relates to the kind of the recruitment and the retaining of the best employees in the industry. We have to train and motivate people to work to give valuable solutions to people. We have to achieve both productivity as well as satisfaction. Now in the words of Bill Gates, we are always saying to ourselves, we need to innovate. We have got to come up with the breakthrough. That is, the markets are changing. So innovation is necessary. According to Steve Jobs, innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. So if you have to be a leader in the market, you genuinely have to create and innovate products which are of the modernized or the kind of the technological advancements in terms of offering better solutions. Growth and survival is dependent on the kind of the problem solution strategy of the company. One person has problem, but somebody has the solution. So if the solution meets the kind of the matching up into the market, we are going to manage marketing. We have to understand how we have to create the condition that things happen into the market. We have to give core critical solutions to the kind of the strategies which genuinely shape up with the problems into the market. The dynamic capabilities have to build up in order to understand the capability profile of the customers and to give the radical changes and the creative solutions into the market. See this model. On the x-axis and y-axis, we have the kind of the parameters plotted. On y-axis, we have the kind of the level of the advancement. That is, at component level, you are bringing the changes, or at the system level, you are bringing the changes. Then you have the incremental innovations and the radical innovations on the x-axis. Now when the component has a kind of a incremental innovations, kind of a change. We have the improvement in the parts or the components of the company. This basically leads to the kind of the new components for the existing systems, and when the changes are more radical, it is the advanced materials and raw materials used to build up the quality of the product. When it is at the system level, we have the new versions of the motor car or the kind of the TV or the luxury products entering into the market, or you have the new generations of the MP3s when you have the kind of the radical changes happening at the advanced stages, and then a kind of a revolution which happens at the system level, and at the radical impact is the kind of the ICT revolution or the biotechnological revolution impacting the market in a very big way. So these could be the changes where the generation of the possibilities of innovation exist into the kind of the revolutions which transform market. So these revolutions start from a change at the component level. The component change impact the kind of the subcomponent aspects, and the subcomponents impact the system, and the total system when changes impact the society. We have to have kind of options where you have to strategically select and implement innovation approach and solutions to the market. The solution has to generate a kind of impact in terms so as to you have to select variables from the various alternatives and then implement these variables into the market. See this model of innovation. We have the simplified model for managing innovation. Here you have the kind of the proactive linkages. The proactive linkages come from the strategic leadership direction into the market where you have to deploy the resources. Then you have the innovative organizations which generate the kind of the options related to the use of the and the combination of the various raw materials existing into the market, and on the basis of the kind of the creation of the variable solutions, you try to select the best option and then implement that design so as to offer satisfaction to the customer. The strategic leadership is the ability to create leadership and commitment to use the resources in the best possible combination aspect. You have to build an innovative organization that structures the climatic conditions in such a way that people build a kind of a loyal relationship with each other, where knowledge is shared and where ideas are created. This is a kind of proactive linkages to relate to the suppliers, customers, sources of finances, and the skilled resources of the people. See this exploring innovation space in this kind of paradigm. We have a model where you have the innovation impacted by the various forces, that is of the process, product, position, and the paradigm of mental model. Now when the changes are from the incremental to radical aspects, the kind of the innovation which is generated into system impacts the markets to the larger impacts. You have to do it better or you have to do it differently. See this model. When you have a product, we can perform it in a little better way, but then if you do it in a different way, it is known as creation or it is known as a innovation. You have a product and service. When you do it better, that means you improve the product, that is product improvement. And now when you do it differently, that is you are doing something completely different from something else. Process is getting learned to quest for excellence, is to do it better, and when you do it differently, it is the kind of the radical change in the process. Position is you extendly deepen the segment, that is the market is extended, but when you do it differently, you try to play in new fields. Paradigm of business concept is when you change the business, the model is changed when you do it better, but when you do it differently, you have to rewrite the rules of the business. So these are the kinds of the changes when you have to do differently things into the market, then only you can achieve a kind of a competitive and a strategic position into the market. The criteria for success is the advantage in terms of product, in terms of price, in terms of distribution, and in terms of promotion. The product superiority will be in the eyes of the customers who weigh in terms of the money invested. Customers want the full value for the money invested. This is the kind of the perception for the key to success. Your criteria for success is also the market knowledge. Doing your homework well is important. That is, you have to do the market research in such a way that you collect the database and try to explore the opportunities where you can match up with the needs of the customers. The market knowledge is important so as to understand the customer and the user needs assessment, and understanding the kind of the critical core values is important. The clear product definition in order to give to the customer is important, because defining the target markets, clear concept definition and benefits to be delivered by a clear positioning strategy, features related to must be argued for the development of the product position. So position is the kind of the development in terms of the mental abilities of people, how they perceive the products related to particular status or group. The criteria for achievement is the kind of the risk assessment of the market. The risk assessment is related to market based in terms of the technological advancement and the kind of the change in the designing process. So it must be built in such a way that the business and the feasibility studies have to match up with the respect to the market and the firm's capability. The project organization have to use the cross-functional multidisciplinary teams in order to build up expertise so as to bear with the responsibility to carry the project successfully. The project resources have to be sufficient financial and material resources combined with the human skills and human mind to make the options available. The firm must possess the kind of the management and the technological skills to design and develop new products. The proficiency and efficiency is important for the quality, innovation, design and technological upgradation. Detailed market studies underpin the kind of the new product success. The top management support is important for the conceptualization of the product to the concept of the kind of the idea in terms which is viable solution into the market. It must be able to create an atmosphere of trust, coordination and control. Key individuals often play a vital role during the total innovation process. The search for synergy is important. Let's see this model. We have to genuinely ask what we can do, what the customers want and what they want in terms, or what do we want from the company? What do our employees, intermediaries and other partners want? And the combination of these two aspects in terms of the customers and in terms of the companies when combined together give you the core solutions of the benefit, which is the centralized position in terms to offer you the best options where the company matches with the needs of the customers and where both the parties benefit in terms of achieving profits and achieving satisfaction. We have to create a sense of urgency to develop the impetus for the change required for the market drivers. We have to put together the kind of the strong team to direct the process in terms to create an appropriate vision to communicate the things in a broader way. The leadership for change is important in terms to empower employees to produce sufficient short-term results to create a kind of credible environment where you have to build a momentum to tackle the problems happening into the environment. You have to build the organization and you genuinely have to impact the kind of businesses related into the domestic market. But this aspect of marketing is a kind of a smaller vision related to local markets and to the kinds of the domestic market where leadership in terms of the few players become important. But how about when we move to the World Trade Organizations where the impacts are larger and the scale of the business is higher? The world trade flow of business in billions of dollars. You have the regions communicating or impacting the total business model in terms where North America, the Western Europe, the Asia Pacific Rim and the rest of the world intertrade with each other to impact millions of lives and impact lot amount of money in the economy, putting a pressure on all the businessmen to standardize their products. It is impacting the local markets also because the impact of the international products or the international standards is impacting the profile of the local products. Now the international trade has a kind of a different equation where the domestic aspects or the domestic rules are much more simple as compared to the international rules which become more complex. The practice of using barter from the olden days has transformed to the modern concept of using currency where different currencies of the world come together to define the exchange rates and most of the countries combine together in a symbiotic relationship. That is, they come in a kind of a counter trade policy where we have the bilateral trade agreements and the kind of the multilateral trade agreements impacting the kind of the flow of the business and systems happening into the world. Can you imagine it is 20% of the world trade which is involving a counter trade balance? The popular is among the most of the Eastern European country impacting the total global equation of the trade. As countries export increase, its national output increases and this output increases the income of the people and impacts the standard of living of the people. We have the demand for the products from the other country which enhances the employment opportunity and changes the total economic superiority of the country in relation to the other countries. The trade feedback effect in terms is the argument that if you have to gain a kind of a economic kind of a paradigm into the market, you have to resort to the international trade. We have the competitive model which impacts the international trade in terms of Porter built up for the kind of the impact resulting into market competition. We have the company strategy the factor conditions, the related supporting industries, and the demand condition. Now these are the four forces which are impacting the international trade. We have shown you in this model clearly how these forces impact in order where the world trade flows into the kind of the aspect where the information and the quality of the product is impacted. Now when you take up the company structure in terms of rivalry built up, we have the number of companies working in any industry all over the world. It is the intensity of the competition impacting the business profile and the impact of the ownership related to the public or the private sector. And then these industries are impacted by the factor conditions in terms of the availability of the natural resources, the kind of the education and skill levels of the people, the wages and the kind of the labor incentives given in each economy also impact the kind of the business solutions. Apart from the availability of the resources, the demand is necessary to foster business. The demand conditions relate to the size of market, the sophistication of the consumers to use the product, and the media exposure of the product, that is the product promotion. Then we have the related and the supporting industries related to the main industries in terms of the existence of the suppliers. So this is the kind of the competitive impact where the companies have to come out into a solution, because genuinely we are into an open trade policy where competition impacts the solution, and the best possible solution in terms of quality and price will sustain. The weaker players will go out of the market, or it is the larger companies impacting the local and the smaller players. It is the competition has become so fierce that we are not into a kind of a market where we are crossing the borders. The competition is not local, national or global, but it is at the click of the mouse. The IT has impacted the world business at a larger impact, where the comparison of products has become easy way. We genuinely have the bigger companies impacting the total business markets. It's like the bigger sharks eating the small fishes. So every company has to be concerned about the kind of the trade equation, but still the governments and the most of the world bodies are looking to the kind of the policies where we protect the trade also. The kind of the protection which is given to the international trade relates into the kind of the tariffs, the kinds of the quotas, the increased price, the limited supply, and the kind of the decreased global trade, which basically impacts the kind of the world balance in terms to maintain and retain business into the markets. But still this kind of protection is decreasing because we have the kind of the strategic alliances happening into the world, where the combination into the kind of the major resource players is happening to build up the business parameters to better solution. The strategic alliances are the agreements among two or more independent firms to cooperate for the purpose of achieving common goals such as competitive advantage and for customer value creation. They are becoming common in way where the firms are meeting with the demand of the global competition. See this model where the global companies and the marketing strategies do meet. We have the type of the global company and the type of the marketing strategy. You have the international firm, then you have the multinational firm, and you have the transnational firm. The international firm is the extension of its home country marketing strategy to the international market. That is, when an international firm is there, whatever the products are made into the domestic market, same products are carried to the similar markets in terms of culture, values and perception, and little extension is done. But when it is the multinational firm, we have the multi-domestic marketing strategy. That is, you are covering many markets, but then you are combining the local ethics of those domestic markets also. And when you have the transnational firm, it is a kind of a global marketing strategy. Now the global marketing strategy resorts to the view that we have the standardized solution for many products, and customers all over the world have the similar needs to use the products. Transnational firms view the world as one market, and they emphasize cultural similarities and universal customer needs and wants. And this is, they give the better solution in terms of the standardized products, where you have the standardized strategies adopted to meet the global consumers. The global consumers consist of the customer groups living in many countries and regions of the world who have similar needs or seek similar features and benefits from the products and services. But still we have the kind of the cultural variations impacting the world market. The aspects of culture which impact the marketing aspects relate to the value, the customs, the symbols and the language. The cultural diversity is related to the kind of the value, representing the kind of the symbolic and the personality differences of the customers in various markets. Customs and norms and expectations about the way the people do things vary into various countries. We have the kind of these things impacting the world market because the economic considerations also combine with the cultural conditions so as to bring about the solutions. When you bring about the solutions into the market, you have to relate to the stage of the economic development of the country. You have to look to the economic infrastructure of the country. Then you have to look to the customer income and the purchasing power of the buyers in that market. The currency exchange rate also influence to the market. But when you move to the international market, the kind of the risk and the kind of the complexity increases. The amount of firms' financial risk increases with each level of entry into the market. We have shown you this model where the alternative global marketing strategies are shown and the risk level is increasing. See, when the type of the joint ventures or through direct ownership you are entering into the market, we'll see what kind of complexity impacts. On the x-axis, we have the kind of the models or the modes of entering into the foreign market. On an y-axis, we have the commitment in terms of the risk. Now, this is the amount of the firm's commitment in terms of risk, marketing control and profit potential. This is impacting the business level, and at each level it increases. At exports it is low, licensing it is more, joint venture it is more, and with the direct ownership of firm in a foreign market, the complexity of both the financial commitment and the financial risk is high. We have to create a worldwide marketing effort so as to position the products globally. The product positioning in terms of global markets relate to product extension, product adoption and product invention. So when the kind of the strategy related to invention is there, we involve lot of amount of money and the kind of the creation. We have shown you over here the product and the promotion strategies for global marketing. Here we have the product invention strategy, which basically is a strategy where you create new products according to the international needs of the customers. And the product extension and the adoption strategy shown in this model, which is basically the same product carried to the outside markets. The channels of distribution impacting the global market impact the kind of the adoption of the product into the international market. We have the seller who manufactures the product. The seller's international marketing headquarters are there, who genuinely create channels between the nations. These channels between the nations create the channels within the foreign nations, and then you reach the final customer through this value chain created of the global marketing distribution. The pricing strategy also becomes important, because when we are into international market, the kind of the economic factors relate to the cost of the production into the foreign markets, the selling tariff barriers, the kind of the taxation, plus the transportation cost, the storage cost and the global pricing decisions are taken into consideration, where the exchange rate fluctuations also impact the pricing decision. Now, dumping is a kind of a price situation where you try to sell the products into the foreign country at a lower price, and grey market is when you are selling the products into the foreign market through the unauthorized channels. Now, whether you are dumping the products into the foreign market or taking the products through the grey market, it is important that you are impacted by the risk. The risk is the basic commitment which is related to the financial liabilities of the sellers and to the buyers into the market. So when you take the products into the market, it is better that you take the proper channel where the cost is standardized, because the kind of the rules and regulations impacting the world market are standardized in terms of demanding transparency. Risk is basically the kind of the preferences where most of the changes happening into the customer profile related to the fashion and the updations in technology is impacting the solutions into the market. It is the kind of the risk associated with the kind of the failure to deliver the goods at time, and it is to genuinely not understanding the financial regulations where most of the kind of the taxes or the hidden costs are bared by the buyers. So when you try to manage these kinds of risk and you have the kind of the advantages in terms of learning these abilities, the firms gain a kind of a edge in terms to sell the products into the international market. Now, the advantage of the multinational firms in the foreign market is that you try to overcome the kind of the trade and the regulatory objections and the problems into the market. You shift cost from the one plant to the another plant. That is, you have markets where the kind of the cheap resources are there. So this costing can be shifted to those markets. Then you save in terms of the labor cost or also into the other cost when you are trying to overcost a particular product. The global marketing standardization is important. Now, what is the definition of the global marketing standardization? The world has becoming a common marketplace in which people, no matter where they live, desire the same products and lifestyles. Global companies must forget the kind of the differences between the countries and cultures and instead concentrate on satisfying the universal drives for customer needs. So the global standardization is like customers all over the world are having the same kind of the need, and the companies do have to produce the standardized products. Like you have the companies who are giving you the examples of the global standard products in terms of McDonald's, Pepsi, Coke, which are impacting the world market. Now this is a quotation taken from www.gillette.com. This is the most important decision I made was to globalize. We decided not to tailor products to any marketplace but to treat all marketplaces the same, and it worked in most countries. 1.2 billion people use at least one Gillette product daily. It captured 91% of the market in Latin America and 69% of the market in India. Huge economies of scale by selling few types of razor blades makes business happen and successful. So we have standardization which works into few products and it works into few markets. So if we can resort to it, we can genuinely cut into the cost. But the standard kind of the marketing strategies and kind of the global markets are not so easy, because we have the global environments impacting the businesses. Now the environmental factors which impact the international marketing relate to culture, the economic and the technological factors in the development happening into the market. It is the political structure, the demographic makeup of the market and the natural resources of the economy. But still we have the legal consideration also impacting the product solutions into the market. The legal structures encourage the kind of the limitations in terms so as to overcome and enhance trade. The tariff barriers, the quota barriers, the embargo and the trade agreements have to be overcome before you genuinely enter into a competitive kind of a rivalry. The global marketing done by individual firm is genuinely a concept where you build the kind of a concept which is impacted by the risk. Now see this model where we have the risk taken on the y-axis and returns on the x-axis. As you move from exports, licensing to joint ventures to FDIs, that is direct investment, the kind of the risk is there but the kind of the returns are high. So when you take up returns as a kind of a solution, you basically earn. So the global marketing is a kind of a strategy which takes many parameters. Domestic markets are simple, where a strategic leadership plays a major decision force in terms to gain a kind of standardized position into the local markets. But when you take the global market and the world trade, you have many factors impacting the world business. I hope the students must have understood the difference between the domestic market and the kind of the international market and the kind of the strategies of marketing required to balance these equations and solutions. Thank you, students.